Welcome to another episode of the Journeyman Co. Welcome to another episode with myself, Michael van Puren, and our very own Jeffy Williams. Hello, boyki.
How's it, buddy?
So before we get into tonight's episode, thanks to everyone again for all your feedback, all your support. Please remember to like, subscribe, wherever you get the podcast, YouTube, Spotify, get onto our socials, send us messages about who you want to see, what you want to hear, and we'll do our best to make that happen. So now the housekeeping out of the way. Tonight's guest, Mr. Klaus Veile, bit different. We haven't done this before. Psychologist, director, keynote speaker. You know, he's been the president of Denmark Rugby. He played rugby for Natal. You know, you speak so highly of him. I was going through his resume, Jeffy. This boy is decorated. Yeah. So it's going to be a really interesting conversation. And I'm looking forward to chatting to him tonight.
Yeah, no, Klaus is a very, very close friend, and he's helped me through some tough times, you know, with mental stuff I've gone through as a rugby player and then leaving the game, coming back to the game. I mean, he even invited me out to his place in Copenhagen on 2 different occasions for 2 weeks at a time. And we're going through all this stuff and almost like a boot camp of psychology and timelining. And he's just one of the best humans I've come across. And the lessons that he's taught me, we have to share it. We have to share it to the journeyman. We have to give it to those young guys coming through. And I think he's a journeyman himself. He left Denmark to come to South Africa back in the 90s. He was one of the first professional rugby players out of Denmark. So we're going to hear all about that. We're going to hear about his journey into becoming president of Denmark Rugby, what he's doing now, and how he can help our listeners and potentially, you know, our subscribers. So I can't wait. This is a big one for us. Let's go.
Mr. Klaus Veile, thank you so much for joining us here on the Journeyman Co podcast. Jeff speaks so highly of you. You know, your resume is elite, highly decorated. You know, former rugby player, you played rugby in South Africa, you played rugby in France, you're a business director, you've commentated at the Olympics for Denmark, you're a psychologist, a sports psychologist, and most recently, you have been given the job of the head of the Institute of Applied Performance Enhancing Psychology.
Yeah.
Well done, Mike.
Spot on, Michael.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, and we're looking forward to having you on, not just tonight, but going forward, because you are such an incredible person to talk to learn from, and we're certainly excited to listen and learn from you, and as I'm sure our listeners will be too. So welcome to our...
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it very much as well.
Yeah, for me personally, I think this is a big one. It's really personal. I mean, you helped me with my whole career. I first met you back when I was playing sevens with England. I think I was in Saracens. We were in the grandstand together, actually at the Lensbury in 2012. And you've been with my career, through my career. You've helped me. You've invited me out to your place in Copenhagen. I've had retreats with you. So I know the power that you have and how you've helped me mentally deal with pressure, psychology, getting me back, working on my timeline. So I just thought, let's open it up. Let's let the young guys hear this, these golden nuggets, these tools for the Titans, because you've given me so much. I remember sitting in your back garden with your dog running around, and you just gave me a book and you said, read this for a couple of hours. It was The Legacy from one of the All Black journalists.
Yes.
And I remember spending 2 weeks there. It was incredible. So I'm so happy to have you on. I think it's going to be so beneficial to our audience and in the future too, because for me, you are the original journeyman. I remember coming to Copenhagen and seeing you, how you were helping the young people, the young players at Christianshavn, getting over to France, getting over to England, young girls coming up to you and thanking you and hugging you. And I'd be like, what happened there? And you'd be like, no, she needed a ticket to play in Dubai at the Sevens. So I had to look after her. I was just thinking, this guy, can you get any better? But anyway, I don't want to blow you up too much. I can't wait to chat and go down the rabbit hole, hear your story. It's one of the most interesting stories I've ever heard. So thanks, Klausie. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, awesome.
So first things first, Klaus, obviously before we touch on some other bits, you are a sports psychologist and
Yes.
you are a performance psychologist.
Yes.
Just give us a bit of insight into what that means exactly, how you go about delivering that message to athletes, and how important is that to a professional athlete or an athlete coming up through the ranks. Because for me personally, I haven't had too much work to do with psychologists. I don't know about you, Jeff. I know you've worked with psychologists before. I haven't had the opportunities to work with many psychologists. So just give us a bit of background into what you're doing now, how that kind of works, and what it looks like.
Oh, well, now you got a chance to work with me, so don't worry, you'll get there.
I might need a lot more than one session.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you do, but most people do though. So join the club. It's a big club though. Okay, so what was the question? What is performance?
Yeah, so basically, what is that performance enhancing psychology look like?
Yeah.
What does it look like for a professional athlete?
Yeah, basically, if we keep it very simple and backtrack from there, is a high performance mindset and apply our performance enhancing psychology or whatever is basically more about the questions you ask yourself than anything else. It's about balancing performance and drive throughout your entire life, in your personal life, in whatever. Because if you perform without thriving, then you'll burn out. If you thrive without performing, then you will lose confidence and you lose self-esteem and stuff like that. So basically, high performance mindset is having small habits that takes you where you want to go and taking yourself seriously enough all the time, even when you're a young player. If you are just on the brink of going into the national side or going professional or whatever, take yourself seriously enough to do the work, to create the habits between trainings, between matches. That's where you win the games. You don't win the games at the game. Yeah, of course you do in some sense, but it's everything you do after training, where you replay everything between trainings. And when you are in Denmark, or where it's not that big, that means you practice 2 times a week and you play a game over the weekend. There it's even more important. What do you do when you're not at the practice? So basically, that's very simplified, balancing performance and thrive throughout your entire life.
And how do those athletes kind of deal with that? Because obviously that one thing I've always struggled with in my career, especially even when I wasn't a professional rugby player, like coming up when the dream first entered my heart and my mind back when I was 12 or 13.
Yeah.
The one thing I always struggled with was having a balance.
Yeah.
It was all about rugby.
Yeah.
And how can that affect someone? How can that be potentially detrimental, or how could it be a pro? So how important is having balance for a professional or an athlete in general?
It doesn't matter if you're an athlete or a professional athlete, or you're a businessman that at high level or whatever, or you're just a perfect human being. Balance is everything. But balance comes from taking yourself seriously enough. If there's something that doesn't work in your life, do something about it. A lot of people, they live with maybe in a bad relationship. Maybe the relationship isn't perfect. Maybe I have got a job that isn't perfect. Maybe I work a bit too much and don't get my exercise done, or whatever. But it's those small life compromises you need to catch from a at younger age, the better. Because imagine you do like a small compromise. This is not really me, but I'll do it for the team, or I'll do it for my partner, I'll do it for whatever. But it's only 2% compromise. But then that becomes the new normal. Then you do another compromise a month in, and that becomes the new normal. Then you do another compromise, only 2%, 1% maybe. But after a year or 2 years, you might have moved so far away from yourself, who you are deep inside your mind and your heart, that you can't recognize yourself. You actually lost yourself a bit from those small compromises. So going back to that, basically, if you lost yourself already, then you have to dig deep, but take yourself seriously enough to do something about it. That's why in academies, when you build identities at young players, and we'll take this as a professional sports environment. because that's where most of your audience is. So building an identity as a young player where you take yourself seriously before you are getting shaped by what other people think about you, what coaches say about you, because they don't know psychology. I've seen so many players get broken from a coach that doesn't know psychology because he doesn't meet the players or the swimmers or whatever. So building an identity is so important, knowing your role and responsibility in the team, when you're at practice, when you're at games, but also knowing your role and responsibility to yourself and to the team when you're not at practice. Because if you want to be a professional athlete, everything in your life, in your mind, has to be about that. What is my role and responsibility to myself, to my team, to my wife or my girlfriend or my husband or whatever? If you're a woman, doesn't matter. You need to know that, and then you need to accept it. Can you imagine? You know your role and responsibility. You said imagine there's a role and responsibility. You know that, and you can cite it. That is my role. I can do this. I have to do this. But if you don't accept it, and you say you can have 10 times 10 to get 100% out of that role and responsibility. So let's say you know your role and responsibility to yourself or to the team, but you only accepted 5 out of 10. That's easy. You don't need to be a professor in psychology to figure that one out. Then you'll only get 50% out of that. So you need to work on that acceptance all the time, no matter what you do. And if you can't accept it, try to reshape it. If you're in an environment where you basically feel like you don't fit in, do something about it a lot earlier than most people do. Then they try to fit in, and then they realize basically I don't fit in. And in that process, they will lose self-esteem, they will lose self-confidence, and they might lose the whole possibility of becoming a professional athlete. So it needs to have a high performance environment, you need more people than just one. Let's say that it was my job to come in and help a team. You need several people that knows this in specific areas. So all the support around them, the players and where they want to go, has some kind of insight in what is it.
So Klaus, just jumping in there, just a scenario here. If you were in charge of a very high performing academy, where young guys, young women were coming in to play sport, it could be rugby, anything, handball. What are let's say three things you would bring in, or habits you would try to create in that group of young athletes from the ages of 16 up to 20? What would you say, three things, habits they could do to find balance, three things they could do to give them tools for what's to come? You understand? So what would you say the three things that stand out for you in your studies and your work with humans? What would be the three things that you found to get the most success?
The first thing before I would give into going into the small habits, I would have a long talk with them. Who are they deep inside themselves? They don't need to know their identity yet, because that's a generic thing that will grow as they grow. But who are they? How do they fit in? What is your role and responsibility to that? And from that, I would backtrack to what I said earlier when Michael asked me, what is high performance? High performance is a daily reflection. So every night, no matter what, before you go to bed, if it's in a professional sports environment or you want to go there, then you have a reflection on the day. What went really well today? And then you replay that in your mind, and with a smile on your face as well. And then you think about which two things would I have liked to have done differently. And then you take those two things, and then you imagine what you would have done instead. That means you create. It's called a future pacing. You create a bridge from where you're sitting now, replaying it in your mind, to a situation in the future where you actually are in the same situation, where maybe you missed a tackle, maybe there was a gap that showed up and you didn't take it, something like that. You replay it, and then when you've done that, it's only a 10 minutes reflection every day. And then when you've done that, you replay the things you did really well, all of that with a smile on your face.
That I like to say that smile part. And I remember you telling me that one study that was done with the smile. I don't know if you want to share that, but it was so interesting to me. And if you could share that with us, with Mark now.
The whole part about I'll explain why it works, because I explained it back to you then. When we sit and we talk to people, 8% of our communication to other people is the actual words we say.
8%.
38% is the tonality, how we say it. The rest is body language. It is exactly the same percentages when you tell your brain a different story.
Yeah.
So that's why when you smile, there's actually a lot of studies now, a lot more than when we met. Was it 6-7 years ago?
Yeah.
When you came to my place the second time, or the first time actually, that was longer. There's a study where people come in with anxiety. They've got a diagnosis of anxiety or depression. Then there was one study group where they had the whole normal thing. They had tablets, pills, and then and therapy, talking to psychologists, psychiatrists, and then they had another group. All they did, they came into the hospital or the research institute, stood in front of a mirror and looked at themselves and smiled, and had like a body pose. Everybody knows about power poses. The reason why that works, because you tell your brain a story that I am okay. So just standing there smiling at yourself, in the beginning it'll be like, yeah, I'm really happy, am I? And then you simply, you don't believe it, but keep on. As a faith is a good thing. Keep on having faith that if you do this long enough, it will change. And after 30 days, 75% of the people that only came in and smiled and did that at home as well. Some of them couldn't look at themselves because they had a low self-esteem and stuff like that. What we simply did there, we made a wall of smiling faces as well. So come in and you look at other people smile, then the whole rapport thing where you actually create the chemicals in your brain, and they were smiling, and 75% had felt so much better that actually they couldn't be diagnosed with anxiety or depression anymore. After 2 months, more than 90% of them were feeling better. If you should come with a guess, the people that had normal treatment with psychopharmaca, stuff like that, and therapy, and how many of them were feeling better? Not much, right?
I wouldn't even have a clue.
20% were feeling better, but none of them where after a month or 2 months were at a place where they could say the diagnosis is gone. None of them, and a lot of them had side effects and stuff like that. So the whole thing about this is knowing that you can change. Depression isn't something you can't affect. You can do that by keep repeating yourself, creating small habits, doing like an evening reflection. And then there's another thing. In that evening reflection, I know I'm backtracking to that, is the last thing you do before you go to bed, or you have a glass of whatever, in France, a glass of wine or whatever. And then you think, okay, how will I start the morning? And that's what you repeat just for a few times in your mind before you fall asleep, because you do the same when you wake up. There's a saying in high performance mindset and in the world in thriving is win the morning and you win the day.
Yeah.
So start simple. Go for the 2%, but go for it every single day. So that becomes like we had the negative part. If you compromise with something you don't want to do, that will slowly that will be the new normal. But it's the same with a small habit where you only go for 2% where you can do it. Sit down and just breathe through your nose. God damn it! A lot of people, 50% of all of us that isn't trained in this, will breathe mainly through their mouth. That's not a good thing. But the reason why it's not a good thing is if you breathe too much through your mouth, that means you'll actually wash out all the CO2 in your lungs. But the CO2 in your lungs is what's most important in taking up the oxygen. So you wash that out, you can pass out, but a lot of other stuff happening when you do that. You will actually get a depression if you only breathe through your mouth. That's why during COVID and stuff like that, a lot of people are feeling bad. One of the reasons is that they had a stuffed nose. That means they couldn't breathe there, and they didn't do that enough. That means they were breathing through their mouth, and that actually has consequences on how you feel. There's a there's a lot of people that actually don't know how to breathe. And there's a lot of chemicals that you actually get just from doing that. We'll go into what you do, the mental training after a training session or after a game and what that. But having that, the evening reflection, if you want to, for the one that listens to you, I can record an evening meditation or evening reflection to them. They can download if you want that. I'll do that over the weekend.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then the morning reflection is the same. Win the morning and you win the day. It's small things.
Yeah.
Do you know the term of stacking habits?
Yes.
Yeah. The stacking habits is a lot easier than creating a whole new habit. Let's say, for instance, that you need stronger shoulders. That means every morning you get up, instead of just sitting there and meditating or whatever, do 5 push-ups. Every time you wait for the coffee to brew or whatever. When you brush your teeth, stand on one leg. When you do the top, stand on another leg. When you do the bottom, that will do another thing, because you will all of a sudden coordinate stuff, and you will actually not only get a physical balance, but you'll actually get a balance in life from that, because you tell your brain a different story by doing something differently physically. And whenever you get disturbed, breathe through your nose, because that will actually calm you down. When you do that, you actually activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is actually what keeps you calm. The parasympathetic nervous system is what actually gets you alert. But breathing through your nose, long inhales, longer exhales for just 2 minutes, and you will start feeling better.
Are these the kinds of things you are seeing in the best of the best athletes? What are kind
Yes.
of traits that they share
Yeah.
across the board? Is it what the things you've mentioned?
Yes, that is that on small things. Then some do some of it, and then others do others. That what I mean is that take yourself serious enough. If there's anything but you need that evening reflection, because otherwise, if you wait 2 days, it's gone. You forgot what went really well, and then have like a week's focus on today or this week. I will focus on. Let's say it's rugby. It's I think most of the people that listen to you comes from rugby. Let's say it's tackling or running lines this week. That means in the evening reflection, replay the tackles or all the running lines that went really well, and then replay the things that you would have done better. If let's say there's 2 options and you took the wrong one, or maybe you didn't even decide what to do, and just went in for the tackle or to get contact. Replay that in your mind for a whole week, maybe 2 weeks. Slowly you will create that pattern in your mind, where you make that future pace or the bridge to situations in the future where you actually do what you would have done but you didn't at practice or at games. So after each practice you had with a rugby ball in your hand, think about it. Replay the things you did really well. Replay the best tackles. Replay the best runs. That means you'll create patterns in your mind built on success, and only take 2 things that you want to do better next time, and then you can take the rest in the evening reflection.
And what do you do with the mistakes?
Yeah, but
often athletes will focus on the mistakes a lot more than they'll focus on the good.
Yeah, and that this is basically a focus exercise, because you sit in the guide. I would actually tell people just for 2 minutes, breathe in through your nose and out through your nose for 2 minutes, and then start the going back and asking yourself the questions. Okay, what went really well? But in your mind, the things you would have done, the things that went wrong, think and ask yourself, okay, what would I have done differently if I had exactly that situation right now? And then you replay like you would have done it. So instead of going in and just getting tackled, you might have thought, okay, I will go in, turn away and pop one way or the other, and then do that like you would have done it. That means instead of focusing on the mistake, you focus on what you would have done differently. But what you will do is you will create a path in your brain to the success, and that means next time you are in the same situation, whether you're running up towards a tackler, you got support out there, you haven't got one on the other side. And because you already knew what to do, because you played it in your mind will do it like you played it in your mind.
Yeah.
If you imagine your brain is a little bit like a big field of corn, or was it wheat or whatever, in there, the more you walk down the same path in that field, the more clear the pathway becomes. And most people have a tendency to remember the things they did wrong. And the reason for that is you don't have to work too hard to remember that, because all your nervous system say, oh, God damn it. So it's a lot easier to remember what went wrong. And that needs a practice. That needs you to actually take responsibility for that in the evening reflection and the morning reflection, and spend time doing that after each training, after each game. Do that mentally, because you actually, when you do it mentally, you will do it with success.
Yeah, Mike's. You think about someone like Michael Jordan or Tom Brady or these sportsmen. They got zero fear about making those mistakes. That's what doesn't hold them back. So many athletes block themselves because of this exact not problem, but exact mechanism. So if we can get the young people understanding this and understanding how it is, because I've done work with Don, and Anthony's done work with Don, and it's exactly the same thing. All he does is he gives you visualization MP3s to positive reinforcement. So positive reinforcement about what's all visualization stuff in your mind. You think about Formula One drivers; they can't drive around the track 70 times every single week. So they do these videos where they talk about each corner, and they're actually connecting the neutrons in their head. And for me, this is golden. This is the golden stuff, you know.
And it is in that.
Sorry, Klaus,
sorry, Michael, carry on.
No, well, just off that point, I was actually, before you mentioned it, I was thinking about Michael Jordan. And what I found so fascinating about psychology, and we've all been in sport for a long time now, is that it doesn't seem to be necessarily cut and dried.
No.
Because what have I heard my whole career? Focus on the controllables, the things you can control. Have balance. Don't overthink. You know, these are things that I've been told to kind of focus on. And potentially it's been a bit of a stumbling block. And then you get a guy that, like Michael Jordan, what did they say about him on The Last Dance? He was brilliant at living in the moment. He was living in the moment. Now, those are potentially one of the things that made him successful. I'm not saying that was everything. But as an example, there might be another player who doesn't live in the moment. He does overthink, but he's right there as a very good player as well. He's just as successful now. I know Michael Jordan is probably a bad example because it's great. But if you get one guy that's an overthinker and one guy that's not an overthinker, they can still get to the same destination. Yet you can get a guy that's an overthinker that doesn't get quite as far, and they'll use his overthinking as a stumbling block, or the overthinking was a stumbling block. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Is that how your mind works?
Yeah, yeah. I guess I'm giving example of my overthinking.
I'm going to sign you up for 25 sessions.
That made way more sense in my head before I said it.
But it made sense for me as well. But it also shows how you think. And seriously, everybody can do this if they're taught. Unless you've got a brain damage, everybody can do this. It's just finding the right tools. That's why there's not a one-stop solution for this. Because overthinkers, their pathways are different than others. They're more introvert and they think a lot, and actually they worry more than other people. And then there's people that
don't worry. Why are you nodding?
You, Butch, that's you.
Why are you nodding?
Hey, Klaus, you've got him. That's him.
But it's not.
10 minutes.
That's the way, because I see it all the time, and that means you need a different approach. Your strength is to worry, to think about things. That's not Jeffrey's thing. He doesn't worry at all. He just dives into whatever, and that's his strength. but together you got something, which is
Definitely.
important. It's also finding and accepting, this is the way I am, this is the way I work, but everybody can do this. Everybody can live in the moment. What happens is, Jeffrey mentioned a bit in the beginning. Is it okay I jump a little bit around?
Please.
Okay, Jeffrey mentioned
Mess
time.
with my head a little bit. Jeff will be okay.
You can look at the recording afterwards, Michael.
Can we just stay on one point for my ADHD, please? No, I'm joking.
We'll stay on the same point about what overthinkers and how to stay in the
No,
moment.
I'm joking. You go wherever you want.
Well, if you have something, let's say you have 5 bad games in a row. Most people, unless they have tools, will start worrying and think, oh, no, I need to avoid this. I need to avoid this. What happens actually in your brain is when there's next time, if I'm on another time, I'll show you how the brain works actually. Because in the middle, the limbic system, which is where all your emotions are stored. So if you had 5 bad games or 2 bad games, because that's where it starts, it actually sometimes it starts just having a semi-bad game, but you replay the bad things you did or that game on and on and on. That start creating a pattern in the pathways in your brain. That means there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of feelings. And when that happens, your reptilian brain or your amygdala, whatever you call it, your fight-flight system kicks in because it actually thinks you're in danger. And as soon as it does that, the timeline, the best way to let everybody has somewhere where they have the past and the present or the future. But when you have something where the brain recognizes it as traumatic, the brain doesn't know the difference between right and wrong or fake or true or whatever. It just reacts to the signals you send it with your body language. So imagine you have a bad game. How do most people that had a bad game sit in the change room afterwards, or when they think about something like that, right? And that would only emphasize feeling bad, and then actually it tells the brain the story, hey, we need to do something about it. And then the reptilian brain kicks in and starts producing adrenaline and cortisol. And when you're in that, you really need to work on that before you need to work on anything else. Because what that does, most of you probably had it if you got scared or if you felt bad for a while, or when we talked about your injury, Jeffrey. When you have an injury, it's the same thing. There's no difference. 2 bad games or an injury where you feel like you can't really let it go. It's because your timeline gathers around you. That means all of a sudden it's very hard for you to think about what has happened, what will happen tomorrow, because the past and the present and the future is mixed up. So basically, one simple rule for all of you that's listening or seeing this, and you guys, is that if you have something, a game where you made a few mistakes, seriously, I don't know if is this my left to you, or is it?
It's my right. It's your right.
It's your right.
Your left shoulder, though. Eh?
Okay, but it's supposed to be my left shoulder. So imagine this is my left shoulder. What you do is you in from your inner eye, you see the mistake you made. You look at it like it's right in front of you. And then you look at it and think, okay, what should I have done instead? I would have done this and this. But to leave it behind you, you basically take your left, this is my left arm, you take it up to the right of that picture you see in front of you of the mistake or the whatever you is, and then you look at it, and then you take it over your left shoulder and simply park it there. Then you look ahead, and because that's where it belongs behind your left shoulder, and it's important that is your left arm and it's over your left shoulder because that's your past. And when you do the next thing is before game, clear your mind. Think about what's the next game or whatever, and look at it, and then think about the last game, and then do like this, and like you squeeze your fingers in between it, and then you take the past over your left shoulder, and the next game over your right shoulder. Breathe in and then step forward and be ready. There you left everything behind and can actually be present in the moment. But like anything else, like a new skill, you need to do this. Consistency is God here. Do that every time. When you go into training, be present. Clear your mind so when you're at practice, you are there 100%. When you leave the field, do the same.
Yeah.
Leave the field behind you and be whoever you are when you're not playing.
But
Does that make sense? I know we're going around.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Would that fall into that it kind of goes back to what I was trying to say in a nutshell is Michael Jordan, okay?
Yeah.
There are stories of how before games he would play 18 holes of golf or 36 holes of golf or whatever it may be, or gamble all night, and then still pitch up at the game and score 30 or 40 points. Now,
Yeah.
I understand there's a degree of talent involved in that natural God-given ability.
Yeah.
But in many respects, that's the exception, not the rule. But there still must have been something mentally or fundamentally within his mindset that helped him perform.
Oh, yes.
When the whistle went or when the ball was tipped after gambling all night or playing 2 rounds of golf. So what was he able to do mentally? And I know I'm sure it would be your opinion, but what was he able to do mentally that allowed him to do that? Because there are athletes like that, guys that can do things a little bit differently and still perform when it matters most.
Yeah. And that is basically leaving whatever happened before that game behind you. And that he has a natural mental strength or natural, what is called strong psychology, but everybody can learn it. Somehow he learned it. A lot of people growing up in dysfunctional families, they either learn it, how to do that. Your dad comes home and you can listen to hear his voice that, oh, this is trouble, so you better protect your sister and your mom or whatever. You learn, either you break from it or you actually learn a mental skill that will help you for your entire life. But everybody, no matter who they are, no matter how much they overthink or whatever, they can learn this. They just need to start slowly and go for the 1%, but do it every day. And that's the tools that everybody, it's like a new language. It's like learning algebra or whatever. It will be tough in the beginning. It's like training a new muscle. It will be sore, but everybody can do it. But you need to do it constantly. Does that make sense? Was that answer enough? He probably had a childhood that taught him, or he had a coach that taught him how to do that, and then he was a natural. He had all the muscle memory somehow, because that's one thing as well. When you do this, when you do the passes in your mind, imagine actually how the ball rolls over your fingers. If you do the out of the back door, imagine when you do that after when you rehearse the game in your mind. Imagine how it actually ball slips over your fingers, so that the muscle memory actually gets connected as well. If I should backtrack to one of the first books that I read about this, was about an American soldier that was captured in Vietnam, and he was in prison in a cell that was 2 meters times 1 meter for 2.5 years. When he left to go to war, he played golf at a handicap of -5. That takes practice. We can all agree to keep that handicap, right? If you are even there at -5, I don't know. But imagine after 3.5 years and then 1 year in a like a facility, a hospital, before he came back to his old golf course with his old friends, went out, played golf, and he played almost to his handicap, to -3. And they say, how can you do that? I haven't played golf for a second for 3.5, 4 years. And he said, there you're wrong, guys. I played golf in my mind every waking moment for 3.5, 4 years, because that was anything that kept me sane. And he was standing, like, feeling the club, looking at his old course, seeing the rough, and he said, it became so easy for me to do that in my mind that sometimes I had to hit it into the rough or into the lake simply to get a challenge in my mind. But the muscle memory from just the mental training about it actually kept him at his handicap.
See, the thing is,
if everybody can do that.
When we did, when I came in after I was finished at Bath, obviously I did my ACL.
Yeah.
I was out for 10 months, came back and played a little bit of Premiership. And then I came and saw you, and you took me in for, I think it was like 2 weeks the first time.
Yeah.
And the first thing you did was you took me into the sea, into the Kattegat
Yeah.
Sea. And I was freezing. It was like I don't know, what was it, minus maybe 6 degrees or 5 degrees.
It was for about 4 or 5 degrees.
Freezing. And I spent such good time with you, learning all these little habits.
Yeah.
Eventually, after that, it took me into my French spell because I managed to get a gig in France, and I ended up playing 50 games in the Pro D2. My best rugby in my 30s, because I would do these little habits.
Yeah.
Go into the ocean all the time, but it started to go to breathe. So I'd go in there, I was going to the cold water in the middle of winter, and I'd be sitting there freezing, and it'd be like this Viking, from Klaus, of course, from Denmark. And I'd be breathing, and I'd go there 3-4 times a week. And I would be so clear running these same things, this positive reinforcement of the game. I'd be thinking, seeing myself just running. And it became so pure. The mind, to me, it was my best rugby I ever played. There was no fear because I was, they say control the controllables. It was all in my head because the focus. So,
it is focus.
Yeah, you run to the mistake. Of course. Oh, you're gonna drop the ball. You're gonna get run over. You're gonna get hurt. But when you start to do it, you just flip back. So you go there, but you can just jump back to the good stuff quickly. When they become so, the habits start stacking up. And eventually you're so clear. It's only the positives 80%.
Exactly. And no one goes through life without making mistakes. No one has perfect games every time. It's actually your ability to let that go and think about it. And the small exercise I told you, replay the mistakes you made like you would have done it, actually creates the patterns in your mind. So next time you won't even think about the mistake because you already dealt with the mistake.
Yeah,
and that was about ice bath as well. I know it's in Denmark. It's very popular now. I go into right now. It's -2 degrees in Denmark. That means my ice bath is there's a little bit of ice on every morning, but I go in there every single morning because it does so much for your system. And if you have a sauna, the soft tissue, there's like a blank muscle on every blood vessel in your body. When you go into a sauna for just 15 minutes, that actually gets flexible. And when you go into the ice bath, you will get a shock, and it'll activate your parasympathetic nervous system. But after that, when you control your breath, the chemistry in your body after that, because you'll produce serotonin, you'll produce endorphins, you'll produce all the good stuff, all the things that makes you happy. I don't know if you've ever seen anyone come out of an ice cold bath of the sea during winter not smiling.
You haven't seen me coming out of an ice bath.
But then you weren't in there long enough. But you need to be there, and then there's a tool for that. Actually, basically, you imagine in your head that you go in there, and then you breathe in through your nose, and you only control your exhale when you go into ice water. Because imagine you blow at a candle that's a meter away without blowing it out. That means you control yourself, squeeze your lips, and then like you're blowing at a candle, and it will take when it's anything between or less than 10 degrees. It'll take you in the beginning 20-30 seconds before you got your breathing under control. But when you got the breathing under control, you actually activated a lot of cells in your system. And actually, when I sit 10 minutes now in 2 degrees of water.
Beautiful.
And seriously, in the beginning, it was like it was freezing, and I enjoyed it mainly because when I got up, all the chemistry you cannot ignore it. But right now I can sit there. I've got a fireplace outside as well. Sitting there listening to drum music, having a fire in front of me in the dark. You have the sky, and then sit in 2 degrees water for 10 minutes. Seriously, there's not room left in your mind to be a pessimist.
Yeah, I love that. I used to do this. Max Leheath used to have this Viking gruel music. He had like a playlist, and it was all music from like the Vikings series, and he's actually quite a few Danish bands and stuff playing really throwback Viking music with the drum, the big drum, and I used to listen to this before going in. It was like that, a spiritual, and I used to like, I used to like scream because it was so, or like shout when I used to get in the water and like jump in. It was crazy. It was like very spiritual feeling. It was cool, eh?
Yeah, but it's good. And another good thing, why going into cold water or working on your breathe, basically work on how long can you hold your breath. That will help you because you challenge your system doing something that will kill you if you don't do it. If you sit long enough in cold water, you will die.
Yeah.
If you hold your breath long enough, you will die. That means training your system being comfortable in the uncomfortable. It's not just for the chemistry in your body. It's actually training your brain in being comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of exercises. The thing about going into cold water, if it's just a shower, it doesn't matter. Or breathing exercises, how to hold your breath, actually trains your system to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. It's just a simple theory. If you're scared of jumping from the 3-meter jump board in the swimming pool, the best way to do it is challenge yourself. Start from 1 meters, then 2 meters until that gets boring, and then imagine in your head before you do it that you actually go up and do it, and then you do it, and you keep on doing it until you get used to it, because everything gets boring or gets normal at a certain time, even jumping from something you're scared of.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So basically, this is not just for the chemistry in your body, but the chemistry is important. It's also learning your brain and yourself that to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. That's a lot of the exercise. The breathing exercise, if you breathe too much through your mouth, that means you wash out all the CO2. But what also does it, you lose a chemistry in your mind or in your system. It's called what is called nitrogen monoxide. It's in English. Actually, that's the chemistry that goes through all your cells. It's basically also for men my age, not that I have the problem, of course, but some old men needs Viagra. Actually, what Viagra does is the same as it actually prevents the chemical that kills the nitrogen monoxide. So just from doing that, you will increase that by 500%. But the other part about this is it'll actually increase your whole system's ability to take up oxygen. Give me one good reason not to notice how you breathe, and then regularly take time to breathe through your nose. And it's simple. 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. Do that for at least 2 minutes before you go from one task to another.
Yeah.
What that will do is it'll clear your mind, but also it'll make you get you ready for the next thing you're going to do. Can you imagine in business life or your own life when you go from one thing to the other and you don't clear your mind in between? There's a lot of task residue you take from one meeting or into the next, or a lot of information residue you take from one training exercise into the next. That means at the end of the training or the end of the day, there's so much task residue from other stuff that you won't have made as much out of it as you would have if you just spent 2 minutes thinking about what did we just do, breathing through your nose, 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out, and then clearing that, creating that pathway in your mind. Actually, you can be, after a whole day of meetings, you can be just as fresh in your mind when you finish the day as when you started if you do this. I'll show you next time some schedules of the brain, just from 4 meetings where you don't break state. Seriously, it's red and yellow where it's supposed to be green and blue when you're fresh. And that's what you can, that's one way you work mental training, the mental part of any kind of game, the mental part of life is replaying the things that went really well and not trying to be something you're not. Not trying to fit in when you don't fit in. That takes courage, and courage also takes practice.
Yeah.
Then some people are very courageous when it comes to fighting other people or going into a rugby field, but they're scared shitless having a serious talk with their girlfriend.
True.
That does something to yourself as well. So learn that, practice the difficult talks, because it's not about just your professional life as a sportsman or a business leader or whatever. It's about your whole life. Don't compromise too much Not that you should just, okay, this is not working for me, darling. I'm sorry, I'm leaving. Work on it, but have the talks. Practice yourself having the difficult talks. Practice the areas where you say, okay, this scares me a little bit, and then be honest with yourself. Honesty about yourself is a really, really important tool. And imagine the younger they are, the better they will be at it. If you learned this at school, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have all the anxiety. You
We
wouldn't have
spoke
all
about
the
this,
depression.
eh? We spoke
Yeah.
about this.
Oh yeah, we did.
Crazy. When you actually think about what we got taught at school, and some of the things that I only learned in my late
Yeah.
20s, because I was lucky enough to be around really good psychologists because of my sport. Because
Yeah.
you have that opportunity to meet people that
Yeah.
are in good positions. But if you could help the youth
Yeah.
and teach them about anxiety, teach them about the brain.
Yeah.
It's funny, you don't learn about that. You learn about accounting, and you learn about all
Yeah,
these
you
things.
learn about algebra,
What do
you
you
learn
do?
about language, you learn,
Yeah,
but
but you don't
that's
learn
not a
about
life skill.
exactly.
Yeah. And then
So
there's a
yeah,
lot of pressure from that, because then you all of a sudden you need good grades and all of that. And it's very simple.
yeah,
Tell the brain the story with your body language. Tell your brain the story that it needs to help you. So if you want to feel good, walk like you're feeling good. And seriously, it will take you 90 seconds for you to convince your brain with your body language that, okay, this is a good day. In the beginning, it'll struggle. It'll say, oh, I thought we had a terrible day. That dog died and everything. And then slowly walk like, smile like you want to feel, and slowly your brain will follow. And I promise you, it will follow.
Klaus, I'm quite interested just to segue onto what you're doing at the moment. That the Institute of Applied Performance Enhancing Psychology in Switzerland.
Yeah.
That is a mouthful, but just explain what exactly is that? Are you working with the athletes or what?
We're working with athletes, which I am in Denmark as well. This is basically doing what I've been doing for the last 25 years. What my professional skill, not as a rugby player, but as a sports psychologist, is I can take very complex theories and make them into something applicable. And that's what they wanted me. These 5 guys that started it, or 7 guys, they're so smart. They're all PhDs in either psychology or psychiatry or whatever, but they can transfer it into applicable methods. And then they keep on trying. The 4 of them haven't even got a LinkedIn profile. They haven't got a web page yet. They've just been studying it. So this is what I will do, and that is, I firmly, I don't believe in theory if it can't be transformed into something practical. Otherwise, it's just fine words. And that's what we need to think. Don't try and explain something that you can't explain, that you haven't tried, or where it actually gets too complicated. Explain it like you're explaining it to your 10-year-old kid or your grandmother or something. And have that in your mind all the time. So to answer your question specifically is, what are we doing? This is brand new. No one knows about this until it's out now. Only a few people know it. It is basically the best and simplest way to get a balance in life, to take yourself seriously. The logo is actually performance and thrive in balance. That is one of their logos. And then it's a tree with actually some, where it's into the ground, and the crown of the tree is actually blossoming. So that's their logo. So the logo is actually quite nice, but that needs to be redone as well.
Are you working with Swiss professional athletes?
No, not yet. It's just started. And right now I'm doing all my educations and trainings is getting, now I can certify them from this institute, so that it gives them more credibility, my certificates. But I'm working. I'll keep on doing what I'm doing now. It's not. It's only one of them that's Swiss. It's basically because the guy that has all the money lives there. So it might be moved to another country. Might even be moved to Denmark or the headquarters or whatever. Since now I'm just getting the feel of everybody there, and then we made a plan, and my plan is in 3 years I'll take over everything in there. So
very
I don't
nice.
like not being ambitious.
And going back to the rugby,
Yeah.
obviously you were the president of Denmark Rugby.
Yeah.
What's the rugby landscape like at the moment in Denmark? Is it growing?
It's growing, not as fast as we would like it. It's the women's rugby is really growing. We have a under 16s team that plays sevens girls, and they just won some big tournaments. So we are growing it, but not as fast as we would like. When I turned professional, when I went to France in '88, we had 2,200 players. When I became president in Danish Rugby Union 8 years ago, we had 2,700 players. The same.
Yeah.
So what did they do? They didn't do anything. I had the front page of the big national paper. I had the back page, and they followed me from a couple of games, but they didn't get one new player from that. So the focus has been changed. But the last 3 or 4 years, or my purpose was to grow the sport in Denmark through sevens, because it's easier to understand. You can use it in schools. Not everybody agreed with that, but it is still the sevens that's growing. It's there where we get the results. Our 15 games, we simply haven't got the depth in players to compete.
Why is it struggling to grow? Because Denmark, is that a football first country, is it?
Football first, handball second. So we got the skills, we got the build, we got the eye-hand coordination. So we need to do something more about getting some converts from either handball or sprinting or whatever to get them in to understand. But they're not exposed to it. It's only the last year we are getting that everybody can watch rugby in Denmark through a pay channel. I have got this web page called Show Rugby on Danish television. I've had that for 4 years now, and I post and I post and I post, and we have several people that contact all the TV channels saying that you got the rights for this. Why don't you show it? So if I had to tell some of the TV channels like Viaplay, that they actually had the rights for this. Now they show Six Nations, they show Premiership, and they show the European Cup.
See,
Just for continuous pressure.
Mikey, I'm telling you, buddy, we got to go there. I did a few coaching sessions, and the enjoyment and the gratitude you get for helping some of the young players is unbelievable. So I'd love to take the journeyman down there and go and see Klaus.
That would be great.
And we could put a camp on. We could do something with the people down there. Put something down in Christianshaven, because I mean, I've got a few stories, but when I walked through Christianshaven with Klaus, it was like I was walking with the president. Everyone is coming up to him, and now for everyone who doesn't know, Copenhagen, Christianshaven is like it's its own governed little piece of how would you say it? Like a neighborhood inside Copenhagen. It's very notorious, like all these beautiful, colorful houses. Everyone's like in these bohemian shirts. It's so cool. It's one of the coolest places I've ever been to.
I'm only coming if Klaus promises to help with my overthinking.
I will promise I'll help you with that, even if you're not coming. Don't worry. All you have to do, you have to walk with me to Freetown of Copenhagen, and then you have a little spleef, and then you're solved.
But Klaus, going back to what we were talking about earlier about the mental side of the game and things, one of the things you mentioned was you can learn it.
Yeah.
Okay. And as we've also touched on, is that psychology, especially in sport, it's not a straight line, so to speak.
No, there's no straight lines in any life.
Everyone's different and things like that. But just if there were young players listening to this, and I'm sure there will be, you could give them 3 tools to work on, other than what you spoke about, building habits and things like that. 3 things for them to focus on, regardless of where they come from, what their upbringing is like, what school they're going to. What could they do?
Focus on if let's stay it in a rugby terms. Focus on the dream of becoming a professional, if that's what you want. But be honest with yourself. Do you want to become a professional athlete? Because when you do that, seriously, let the dream be so big that you cannot not do it. That's one thing. So keep the dream, see yourself doing it, imagine yourself doing it, like I just talked about the future pacing or the bridging to the future. And then know that it is all about habits. Know what you can do between practices, between games, after game, for your game and you as a person to become better. And then take yourself seriously enough that if you feel something doesn't work for you, ask for help. That is one big thing that, yeah, especially rugby players don't do. No, soccer players actually, they do it less. Ask for help. If you don't understand, if you can't fix it yourself, ask someone. Find someone like you guys, or a coach, or an older player that you've seen doing this. Sit down and talk to, because no one, hardly anyone, can deny if someone asks for help. Everybody wants to help you.
Exactly. And jumping on that, I think for myself and Mike, and with you now, I think that's a big focus of what we want to try and do, is have a big brother program. So these stories that I'm telling about people coming up to you, that's why I call you the godfather of the journeyman, because you were doing it already, and you have been doing it for the last 20, probably 30 years, since you were one of the first Danish superstar rugby players to come out of there and to play in France and to play in South Africa, and to come from a small place like Copenhagen where the rugby was like that. So for me, that's our big dream. I would love to have myself, when I was 20, 21 years old, to say, listen, Jeff, can you help me with this? Klaus, can you help me with this? Marky, can you help me with this? Because Marky, it's like everyone here, has his talent and giving a message or coaching is like I've never seen with young players. The stuff he's doing now in Newcastle, in the community, and the things he's done in South Africa with young hookers, and it's unbelievable. So we thought, let's put this all together. Let's start this podcast. Let's give lessons in terms of little golden nuggets from all these cool people that we know on our phone book. But also, let's make a platform where we can get people coming and getting help. No?
That's perfect, because we need help. In Denmark, we wouldn't know who to contact. Now they know who to contact, more or less. But if there's something like an environment like this, and then as we talked about, I would love to come on regularly. Get the people that listen to this. Send you a text or a message. I had this problem. How can I solve it? I had this continuously. How can I solve it? So we go in and get very practical. Each time, and then we can help people solve their problems, because that will, if one has that problem, I'll be damned if not a lot of people have the same problem.
Especially especially from a psychological sporting point of view. I mean, like I said to you, Jeff and Klaus, early on, I didn't have much access to sports psychologists during my career. You know, you're listening to your best friends, you're listening to your parents, you're seeking advice from people you love and you trust. Whilst that advice might be incredible and great, you might not have the tools or the training to implement that advice. Someone might tell you how to deal with pressure, but you don't quite know how to deal with pressure. Or failure, for that matter, or having to overcome injury. So, if they do feel like they have questions, they must comment on our social media page, and
we'll ask them tell them what to do, because the good thing is asking a friend. You will have some help, and they want to help you. The bad thing is, it's the way they're thinking, the way they learned, and they might think and learn differently because they learned it from different points of view. So it's the best intention ever, but sometimes it's their way of looking at it. It's their map of the world, and it can help simply because you've seen them do it. You've seen them do well, like Anthony Watson. Everybody knows he can do it, so it has some value when he says it, but it's his way of thinking. And then if you're not a little bit like him and you try to do it that way, you might fail. So it's basically, how do you handle failure? How do you handle that stress? How do you handle anxiety? Because the rest is easy.
That's the golden nugget right there, because 2% are the ones that are the ones that are in the England team or become British and Irish Lions, the stellar career.
Yeah.
It's the 98% of the kids that probably they don't have that same mentality. So everyone's an individual, right? So you're right. You have an individual bespoke sort of way of working with how you can deal with pressure and how it actually picks, you know.
And then be satisfied. Sorry, Michael.
I was just to jump on that. I think the key is learning actually how to implement that advice.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And it's not as difficult as you think, but most people had no one that could do it, explain it to them in a simple way where you can actually, the reason why we do this evening meditation or reflection or morning reflection is that you actually give people or the young players or the whatever players a way to take responsibility themselves. That is when it will start working, and you put some, and you expect them to do it, and it will work. I have so many people that when they come to me like 10 days after, say, "So how are you doing? How are you doing with the reflection after training?" "Oh, I didn't really have time to do it." And then there was no progress. But if you do it, you will have progress. But you know that you can actually do it yourself. And that is the reason. And then there's another thing. You need to accept that not everybody becomes England players. Not that it should kill your dream, because you need one thing. You can have all the skills, you can have all the stamina, you can have all the character, but if you don't get the opportunity, you will never be an England player or an England Sevens player or a Springbok or whatever. So live with that wherever you are, and be happy with wherever you are, but want more all the time. The most people I talk to that has this naturally high performance mindset, they are more or less always satisfied with whatever they did, but they also know that I can do better tomorrow. But the satisfied part, really replay your game and be satisfied with all the things you do, and the things you failed in or missed, you can practice that, replay it in your head, and then leave it. Actually leave it behind you, like I showed earlier. And then you will start growing, and then take the small steps, but do it every day. So evening reflection, and then think about how you start the morning, and then win the morning. When you win the morning, you win the day. That is to all the young players, to answer your question. That is one thing, and then take yourself seriously enough. If you're confused, ask someone that knows. And keep asking until you find someone that can explain it to you in a way where you understand it, as a young player or as a senior player, doesn't matter.
I love it. I think I can, as a fellow human, I can relate to that, because I've gone through that. Being inquisitive, asking questions, finding out. Like, I remember in my early 18, when I was 18, 19, you know my story, but I lost my granddad and I lost my love for rugby. And with that, I was lost. You know, you go to university, you study, but your friends are playing rugby, you're not making it, you become depressed. You discover for the first time anxiety. What's a panic attack? What's this about? Why am I breathing like this? What's my body doing? And I'm 20 years old. I've got no clue. You think you're losing your mind.
And you are, in a sense.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there thinking, what am I doing with my life? How do I had the dream of being a rugby player. So eventually, I'll never forget this. And this is without a psychologist or anything. I don't know, by chance or my spirit or something, but I moved to Cape Town. And I said to myself, I'm going to smile at everyone. I was working, so rugby was done. I had a job. I was going to smile at everyone, the petrol attendants, the people in the shops, and that's what I did. And what I would get back was love and smile back. 90% of the time, people smile because the smile was real. The smile was like, it started out a bit desperate and, like you said, a bit squeaky, but they would smile back at me.
Yeah, of course they will.
But that's the way the mind works. You say hello and you can speak, and next thing you know, you're on a roll. But when I hear these things, I know how important it is to be inquisitive, to ask questions, because there's so many people that can help you. And there's so many people, little things, little habits, like breathing. Do you know, breathing can take you straight out of an anxiety attack.
It will, straight away.
You were the one, you're one of the ones that told me that, with the reptilian brain, with bringing it completely down. So that's why going for long walks. I mean, you would talk to me all the time. Take 45 minutes out your day, go for a 45-minute walk. It's incredible stuff. You know,
if any one of the listeners out there have a panic attack or get scared, basically make sure, because when you do that, I bet you you're breathing through your mouth, because you feel like reptilian brain kicks in, and then it actually increases the energy and the blood flow to lung and the big muscle groups, and that means you will actually open your mouth and really breathe in, because it feels like the system needs oxygen. When you have that, if you get scared, if you get worried, the simplest thing in the whole world to everyone listening now, for 5 minutes, just breathe in and out through your nose. Deep breath, long exhales, deep breath, long exhales through your nose, and it will calm your system down, because that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is calming you down. And if it's really bad, and this might sound strange, if you're some people actually this is a lot of research that I just seen from the institute that shows that even schizophrenic people, they can cure more or less schizophrenic attacks or hallucination by holding your left nostril and just breathing in and out for 5 minutes through your right nostril. This is my right, just so you this is my right. So,
So you close your left.
Yeah, close your left, because the right nostril goes up to your left part of your brain, and that's where your logic, your linear thinking is. And when you are hallucinating or you are over anxious or whatever, just by doing that, it is a little bit like putting the foot on the speeder in your car, but to the logic part of your brain. That actually helps 8 out of 10 people with hallucinations and logic if you're overwhelmed. But if there's one thing, start by breathing through your nose.
And it's
That will
so
cure
good.
any
So
panic
good.
attacks.
It's so true. It's so true. Even when I remember I was in Bath and not Bath, Béziers, and I broke my nose. So I used to be able to do all my breath work, and then my whole clavicle obviously just was moved. I couldn't breathe through my nose. I couldn't sleep.
No, you can't.
My diet, my body changed. I became less like I couldn't run as far. It was crazy, you know. Really
But
makes sense. A lot of
actually,
athletes
you can get you can get psychotic from that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of studies that shows if people can't breathe through your nose or through their nose, their emotional system isn't as activated as other people that can do that.
Yeah.
So that's when you break your nose, or if you have some people have where you can only breathe through one nostril, or you can't really breathe through your nose. They actually have difficulty. Then it's really important that your exhales are long and slow, so you keep the CO2 in the system. But there's a lot of people that are struggling psychologically simply because they can't breathe through their nose. And when you don't know that, and you get an injury, and everybody I've been boxing as when I was younger as well, you will break your nose when you play rugby at a certain stage. And then if you don't know this, you can actually get worried, as you said, am I losing my bloody mind?
Yeah.
And in a sense, you are. There's a lot of other stuff that if you breathe mainly through your mouth, the chemistry in your mouth actually is dried out. So that means you will have worse teeth as well. A simple thing like that, because the chemistry and the bacteria in your mouth is getting dried out. You don't know if you got a cold. You wake up in the morning and you're like, you can't really open your mouth. That is where you've really been breathing through your mouth, and the chemistry in your mouth actually needs to be reactivated.
Well, breathing's become a lot more popular.
Oh yeah, it has.
I mean, the obviously we know the special forces and the Navy SEALs and the fighters. I know I've been doing boxing, and our trainer, like, one of the things he's big on is breathing through the nose.
Yes.
And when we start getting tired in the sparrings, like round 2, 3, 4, you literally hear him screaming through the nose, through the nose.
Exactly.
Honest
And
breathing.
there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Now you know the reason.
Love that. That's so, you know what, like if you're teaching a young kid how to pass,
Yeah.
the ball for one day and teach him how to breathe. I mean, a lot of people, Wim Hof, we spoke to Max about it, but that's why I do think, you know, the journeyman, we're going to have a little retreat, you know, down the line. I think our vision of what we want to have is like, you have these retreats or camps where people come out to Denmark and we do breath work sessions, sauna sessions, mental skills
all
training.
the things where you actually make yourself feel better.
Yeah, exactly.
I did a fun exercise with the local school where I went down. They were playing some basketball, and they wanted to play tag rugby, and I still got this tag kit. I did a test. I split them up. Though no one had ever passed a rugby ball before. No one.
Yeah.
And then we had one group going out and actually practicing and hitting something with the rugby ball and finding their way, which way they passed the best way possible. And then I had one group where I mentally trained them and showed them how to roll the ball, and in their head actually doing it and hitting the board 5 meters or 7 meters or 10 meters away.
Yeah.
And then the others were standing outside practicing and failing and failing and failing. You probably know the answer, but who did best when we did the test or the competition afterwards? The one that mainly practiced in their mind, or the ones that practiced out there and failed?
In their mind.
Yeah, because they had no mistakes, they had no failures, because in their mind they hit the board. That means they came out with a lot of energy and a lot of focus on, I can do this.
Yeah.
But all the others, they knew now they couldn't do it because they practiced, and you didn't do the mental part as well. So that is one reason.
It was powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just think about the American soldier, how actually just by thinking about it, he kept the muscle memory was reactivated just by thinking about it. That's what you can do mentally, and it's not taken seriously enough. You can do anything mentally when you put your mind to it. Literally. If there's anyone want to read about it, there's a really, really good book. James Nestor. It's called Breath. An American psychologist and scientific author that explains everything about the chemistry, the everything. He did actually a test when he realized all of this, and he had things, the earplugs in his nose with surgical tape, so he couldn't breathe through his nose for 10 days. After 10 days, his sleep apnea, his anxiety, everything grew, even though he was a well-educated, highly smart, highly motivated man. He started getting sick. At the 10th day, he started getting hallucinations just from only breathing through your mouth.
Yeah.
So, and that's a really good book that will explain everything or verify what I said. So
we'll put that on the comments. I think Mikey can put that book out there, because I think it's good that we put as much information and share as much stuff as possible for the inquisitive minds out there.
And then ask them to send questions, and I'll answer them.
I think that's the big thing, because I would love to, or we're going to have you on at least once a month, or once every 6 weeks.
Whenever it suits you or your schedule, I'm easy.
Yeah. We love it. I think it's so good to have this, so people can actually start connecting with you and picking your brain on things that they're dealing with or struggling with. And for me, like I said, we just want that guy. When you were going over to France, you would love to have like a big brother program where they could pull you in and say, listen, here's someone here. So
because
awesome. I mean, there's so much more I want to talk about. There's so much more about your time in South Africa, but I think we'll keep it for the next episode. But your travels from playing with the Sharks under a different name to playing at Harlequins Bluff. I mean, Buffs. Even I was there. I played in Natal during that. Well, not during that time, but probably 20 years.
You were born that time.
I was just getting born in 1988. So while you were winning best player of all the qualifiers in Denmark, I was just getting born. So I would love to cover all those things and how it was playing rugby in Denmark. But I think we'll keep it for next time, because it's so interesting listening to you. We've got so many pieces of nuggets of gold there.
And then explore the nuggets, and then I'll fold them out, because this is, as Michael said, no one is the same. So if you want to try and do something that works for another but doesn't work for you, you can lose a lot of courage, you can lose self-esteem, you can use anything or lose it because it doesn't fit you. So, but when you explain how you can do it, how anyone can do it, because it's practical, then it's easier to do. So,
exactly. I'm living proof.
I
mean, I'm living proof. That's why I think when you've got someone like you and we sat down, you actually did the timeline with me.
Yes, we did.
In the room, and you touched my shoulder and all these things. I remember speaking to you about it, and how much I lived in the past with people passing away, even talking about my granddad now. It shows me how I bring it back. But you really did fix me in the way I saw that, and how important it is to stay, in the present.
It is, and that's basically the most if there's another advice for young players or any player is be present 100% in whatever you do. And if you're disturbed by the past, do that exercise, or make a note, and I'll show them exercise, and I'll show them video or whatever.
Exactly. You do like a board presentation too. You've got the whiteboard there. But this is so special for us, and I think having you on the team with us is something very exciting. I can't wait for the people to hear it. And if you want any help, you know where to come. Our email is on the website at journeymanco.com. So for us, it's right there. We as not ex-rugby players, as current rugby players and ex-rugby players, now psychologists and presidents and all these things, we want to give back. We want to help. We want to show a route to a better life. And you know, so many times rugby players feel, you see it so much now with mental health stuff, but they feel alone. You know,
they do. Yeah,
you feel alone. You leave rugby, you don't have that camaraderie, you don't have that sort of support system that you would like. I know that from a lot of my friends, even in today's game. So we're trying to create this. We've got a lot of things happening. So I'm really excited to bring you on. Thanks, Klausy.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thanks
Michael,
very much.
Do you know Charlie Roberts that comes a lot in Newcastle?
Charlie Roberts?
Yeah, girl. She was with the Yorkshire Rugby Union earlier. I did a lot of programs in Yorkshire and in Newcastle on performance and anxiety psychology. She comes a lot to the games.
Okay. No,
I'll put you in touch with her. I've got her on LinkedIn. I'll put you in touch with her, Mikey, and you can maybe potentially meet up. Does she do psychology stuff too?
She's done a lot of stuff with me as well, and got a lot of stuff. And actually, she just got a nose job where actually now she's flourishing, because now she can breathe through her nose as well.
Beautiful.
But a really, really beautiful, nice person that has a big heart for rugby as well. So
well, I look forward to it. You can put us in touch. But thanks so much for your time, Klaus, and I'm looking forward to chatting again and diving into more psychological issues that we can work through.
Yeah, you can be the guinea pig, because there's a lot of things to work with. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you asking me, guys. And as Jeffrey said, I love to share, and I love to help, especially the rugby sport or just people in general. It's my entire life in there.
Yeah, you legitimately help people, and that's why when I saw you, 5 years ago at Christian's Haven, and we went down and did that coaching session, the way you were, the way the people come to you, it's your natural calling. So for you to want to come and help us and to show us how we can do this, how we can consult and make this something we can share with more people and do it more on a regular basis with connecting, it's going to be amazing, especially if we work as a team. We've got Marcus Watson, who wants to get involved with the Sevens. We've got the Eastern Cape Cowboys, Chris Clutie, Matty Williams. They probably need to see you too for a couple sessions. They're a little bit cuckoos, but and myself, we all need help. We all need to be pushed and motivated. So I love it. I just think this is what, if we've got these technologies like this, you can sit here in France, you in Denmark, and Mikey's up in Newcastle, and you're sitting here having a conversation like you in your lounge.
It is amazing, isn't it?
People. It can reach people, So
the world is getting smaller and smaller all the time.
Yeah. But I really love listening to you. Your enthusiasm and the way you share, I love it. So
I'm still equally passionate now that I was 40 years ago when I started this journey. So
special.
Yeah,
special.
I won't ever stop.
I love that. Well, Klausy, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thanks for asking.
Cheers, Chat soon.
Guys.